Welcome to Run with Purpose. This is episode number 117. And for those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you would subscribe. And as always, you can reach out to me on all of the socials everywhere at flores.run. Hope you have had an amazing week. Hope your weekend was great. Hope everything was just good. I need to adjust this microphone, leaning over too much. It's been a great week here. I've been getting in a lot of runs, which has been nice. The running has been going pretty well, knock on wood. Things have been feeling good. I've had a few hiccups here and there with my foot. As you know, I can't remember what it was called now, like post something, I don't know, inside of my foot. There's a tendon there that's kind of acting up and not being friendly, but we're getting through it. It's funny because the last few guests I've had on the show, on their Instagrams, they've specifically talked about this idea of running slower and kind of following your pacing. And shouldn't be running fast every single run. Like there's a reason you have slow runs and long runs. And I've been using some of my midweek runs to just be like, hey, these are like recovery runs. Just chill out, relax. And it's funny how, over a decade in of running, and I'm finally listening to that type of advice, and it actually feels good. I'm actually able to go a little further. Things don't hurt as bad the next day. So it feels like I'm getting a good little bit of a training cycle in. There's not really much way to really train for the kind of races that I'm doing here in the next month or so, but it is what it is. We're just going to play it through and see what happens. But last weekend, we ended up getting some bikes. Kayla and I, you actually can see them in the video. I forgot they were going to be in the shot. We got some bikes, which is nice because we can use that for cross training. I'm also using it for commuting. We have one car. So because of the one car situation, we have to make sure that we kind of organize things. And she was going to a Pilates class this week. So it's nice to have the bike. So that's been nice too, to get out on the trail. There's a trail right behind us. That's been really nice just to get out on and just kind of see a different area. And this area is so crazy. And I'll probably talk about it in another episode, but we're north of Chicago, but it feels like we're in the middle of the country. Like most evenings we hear coyotes howling. We hear nothing but bugs all night. The window stays open. It's very, very peaceful. Unlike the craziness in the house we were at, right, with all the kids and the noise and all that stuff and being in the basement, being freezing. So it's been a nice change of pace, but something to get used to because it's that eerie quiet again that I just don't know how I feel about. But we just got some patio furniture. You can see in the video this side, the pillows there for it. If you're not watching the video, you can check out the video. They're on Spotify and they're on YouTube as well. If you didn't know, now you know. But it's been nice we're getting patio furniture obviously just in time for fall, but it was on sale and it just made sense because we needed some stuff outside. So now we are basically old people that sit outside and watch hummingbirds. I posted it on my story last week about these hummingbirds that we were just sitting here watching and they're fighting and that sort of thing. It's super fun. Maybe I'll actually post it in a post so you can see it. But overall, it's been a really great week. And I really hope you've had one too. It's been on my mind a lot lately, is really trying to connect with the folks that are listening and just kind of understand what's going on in your lives. What things are you doing? Are you doing some races? Are you going through some stuff? Do you have some cool ideas? Reach out to me. I love having conversations with folks. As much as I slide into other people's DMs to ask them questions or ask them to be on the show, ask me all the things. Open book. I'm excited to kind of just share anything that I can with all of you. But today's topic is something that we've kind of talked about before in a way, sort of. It's been a part of a few different episodes of this idea of YOLO, right? You only live once. So do what you please, or store up everything for yourself, live it up in every kind of way that you can, without kind of care or regard for others. And I feel like a lot of times it goes hand in hand with like FOMO, right? A fear of missing out, which we've talked about as well, is since we're not wanting to miss out on the things, let's do all of the things and live it up. I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of mentality, or I'll rest when I'm done kind of thing. And this idea of like, let's give me all of the things, experience all the things, because we only have this one life to live. And today I kind of wanted to spin that thought and just turn it around a little bit. I had this thought on a run a couple weeks ago of what if we use this one life, because we do only live one life in this world. If we turn that life and we used it to actually be a difference maker, kind of like how we flipped hangry around, right? In the definition of hangry. What if we flip this idea of YOLO, and instead of making it all about myself, what if I use that to be a difference maker, to kind of make an impact in someone else's life? Instead of leaning in what we can do for ourselves, what if we take a step back and thought about how we can make a change or make a larger impact in our community, for a group of people, or maybe even just a single person. We don't have to be this large, lavish thing, which I'll get to a little later, but really, how can we just make a difference with what we have? A few weeks ago, Kayla and I had a date night in Chicago. It was our first night in Chicago. It was our first full weekend. She was back here since we originally moved in, because she had been traveling so much. And we went to go see Michael Jackson, the musical, on Broadway, which was absolutely amazing. It was our first Broadway show that I'd ever been to. And if you weren't aware, I'm a very big Michael Jackson fan. So this idea of being able to see this was just absolutely amazing. The show was fantastic. So if it is coming to your area, highly recommend checking it out. Especially if you like any of Michael Jackson's music or the story, because really the show is about him prepping for the Dangerous tour and kind of recapping his life to that point. How did he get to that point in his life? But I digress. The reason I bring it up is Michael Jackson has this song called Man in the Mirror. And the hook in the song at the end of the chorus is, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, then make a change. And this is the exact idea that I'm talking about. So often when we talk about making a change or being a difference maker, or why aren't things the way they are, we're pointing the finger at others and going, well, if they would only do the thing, if they acted in a way, people of power, people of influence, what we consider power and influence or wealth, if they actually stood up and made the difference, then that's when we could see change, right? We kind of push it onto others people, but really this concept of let's use our lives to be that. Let's look in the mirror and see what we can do to be a part of the solution, not continue adding to the problem. Because in my opinion, if we're complaining about it, we're not doing anything about it, we're actually a part of the problem, because we're not actively seeking some sort of solution for it. So what if we took a look at ourselves and determined how we could use the things we have to make a difference? Now, I'm not saying that you need to quit your job and go to a third world country and kind of live in that atmosphere, or you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor and that sort of thing. And if that's what you feel called to do, by all means do it. But that's not really where I'm getting at here. But what if we use our lives in and of itself to make an impact on on others? And again, what if we just did it for one person? Sometimes I feel like we feel like we would love to be able to do something, but then we don't feel like we're useful in a larger capacity or for a larger audience. Again, that idea of I don't have the extra influence, so trying to do this really isn't going to be helpful because I'm not going to make a huge impact on it. But what if you made an impact for one person? What if we started small and got down to that level? Similar to the episode last week when I talked about getting back to the basics. What if we just look at the gifts and talents that we have right now and then look for opportunities to use those gifts for someone else's benefit? And again, it doesn't have to be a big act or a big production. Maybe your gift is kind of being a happy, welcoming presence in any room that you're in. So maybe you need to find a place where you can be that uplifting spirit, let it shine, be that light to those that might be in a dark place, whatever it might be. Or maybe you're a great storyteller and, you should maybe go volunteer at a children's hospital or a nursing home and kind of share those stories, share that enthusiasm to make a difference in someone's life. I think we get so caught up in I don't have the resources, so because of that, I'm not able to make a difference, when in fact, we all have different skills and abilities that others can benefit from. I'm good at things that others are not. And really it comes down to when we're able to kind of be honest with ourselves and also be willing to step out of our comfort zone, we can use those skills, abilities, gifts, whatever we want to call them, to help others. I have so many relationships in my life that the real reason they started is because one of the two in the relationship, stepped into our abilities and got out of our comfort zone. Whether it's me meeting people in a leadership opportunity or even starting like audio production and podcasting, I felt like I had some things to say. So I shared it with a few people and they kind of leaned into like, yeah, you should do this, you should do that. And that's kind of where it happened. Hangry started because we wanted to fill a need in the community. And I didn't know anything about putting on races or anything like that, but I was a runner. So I was like, well, I understand the concept of it, and I didn't really understand fundraising, but I'm like, hey, I can bring other people along, use their gifts to make a larger impact. And really just taking that small thing and seeing how it can flourish to something much larger. Again, I think we get into that rut of, if I don't have the resources, I'm not going to make a large impact, when a lot of times all we need to do is make an impact for one person. I've said this before is, I'm going to keep doing this show as long as people find it useful. And even if I'm reaching one person and communicating with one person, to me, that's useful because I'm making a difference with my stories. I said it last week. This idea of a lot of the topics that come up are things that I think about because it's something that whether I'm struggling with or I'm questioning or figuring out, and I use these topics to kind of give my personal opinion on it. I don't have any education background on this. I don't have any, a lot of times I don't have any evidence or proof of these kinds of things. It's just my thoughts in this process and how I'm thinking about it. And going back to when I said for folks to reach out to me, I'd love kind of to get people's opinions on that, of whether you agree with me. Actually, Jonathan, I don't agree with that. And I'd be happy to have that conversation because I think that's how we learn and we grow in those instances. And I think this is the same kind of situation. Are we willing to kind of step out of our comfort zone and use the talents and gifts that we have to make a difference in someone else's life? So often we shut ourselves down before we even try something. We get to a point where we're like, actually, this is too big. I can't do that. I need more money. I need more resources. I need more influence. I need more whatever the thing is. And because of that, we kind of shut down the idea that we're even able to do such a thing. And when we shut that down before we even start, we're putting a cap on our potential. We're eliminating the chance of something great because we're not even willing to be able to take that first step. We cancel ourselves, or we say we're inadequate, or we don't have the proper abilities or the right influence. Like I've said influence probably like 35 times on the show already. But we hold ourselves back before we take that first step. And in doing so, we're just limiting our potential. And I think that is the thing that so many people get hung up on, is this idea, especially when you think about YOLO of we're going to do our selfish ways, because we can see the little things that we do for ourselves and we're like, oh, that makes me feel good. That's a great impact. But we don't think about how those same little things that we feed ourselves with, how much more we could feed somebody else with it. How if we do those small things, those small little things, again, when we think YOLO, sometimes it's bigger things. I'm going to go to Europe, or I'm going to do whatever. But sometimes it could be like, hey, I'm just going to get this. I'm going to treat myself to this coffee or this nice meal or whatever the case might be. Not large acts. They're very small things. But how often do we actually think about doing those small things for someone else? How often do we think about, hey, maybe I spend 5 minutes reaching out to someone that I've been thinking about, or maybe I saw on social media is going through something hard, or maybe I can provide some insight in, or maybe they just need a listening ear. How often do we actually engage in that way that's being proactive, not reactive? We're not waiting for that situation to come to us. We're actually looking for it because we know in our gifts, abilities, talents, our resources, whatever the case might be, that we're able to make an impact in someone's life in that way. And And I know the opposite side of this, sometimes when we're serving others, we can get taken advantage of. Opening ourselves up does give the chance that we might get hurt in the process. Things may not go the way we hoped they would. Maybe folks don't react in the way that we hope they would. Or maybe it's a pushback situation, or taking advantage of you're buying food for someone or something and it just keeps going. And you're like, hey, what do you like? I thought you were struggling, but now why are you kind of taking advantage of this situation? Things won't always go the way you expect, but I think time and time again, we have to learn from those experiences and continue to grow. We can't let previous biases or previous situations always dictate the end of a situation. Again, we're eliminating the chance of potential. Now, caveat, obviously, if something's dangerous, you're in a bad situation, that sort of thing, I'm not saying stick around and see if it fixes itself. But in those circumstances where we're trying to help people, if we have a bad experience with one person and we shut that down because it is a bad experience, that shouldn't automatically neglect anyone else that might be going through a similar experience. Because what we're going to do is we talked about this lens and filter aspect, right? We're seeing this through a different lens because we have this like cloudiness of what we went through previously. Again, human nature, we think about that. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. We find things that don't vibe with us basically and say, hey, I'm going to apply this to other situations. But what if we're applying that too far across the board? And in doing so, we're eliminating the opportunities that we could have to make a difference in someone else's life because of somebody else's failure, mistake, what have you. I think in those circumstances, it's only a failure for us when we hit those bumps and basically shut down. So we need to keep kind of pushing forward, taking those steps, getting out of our comfort zone and saying, hey, how can I make a difference in someone else's life? Let's look at all of these things as a learning opportunity, and how can we bounce back from those situations when they arise. So here's kind of my challenge this week for you at the end of this episode is really take an assessment of the things that you enjoy doing. Not necessarily the things that you would say you're good at. You're probably good at these things, but it doesn't have to be I'm good at these or I'm perfected in these things. But what are the things that you enjoy doing? Because when you enjoy doing it, you have joy doing it. And how can you share that with others to bring them that joy as well? And then look for those opportunities to be able to use those gifts that you enjoy to bring joy. And if you can't find opportunity, make sure you're kind of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Because you might be, again, limiting your search because it feels safe. This is the group I'm going to focus to. And it's like, well, this group doesn't need it. Well, I guess there's no need for it. Broaden your horizons a little bit. Dig a little deeper into what's making it uncomfy and go there to see if you can find the opportunities. And after all of that, if you still can't find opportunities, then make the opportunity. You'll be surprised how much you actually impact yourself when you put others first and do that, looking for those opportunities. Hangry wasn't something necessarily that we wanted to support. We wanted to give back. We wanted to do something. We didn't see anything. We just made it. And in doing that, you then create opportunities for others to do the same thing. Getting around a common cause, a common reason, and others will then join in because they also want to support that because they believe it as well, but they didn't even have they didn't have the opportunity or didn't think about creating the opportunity, but you know what? You can join the opportunity. And there's nothing wrong with joining an opportunity. You don't have to create something. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. But use those gifts, use that joy that you have and the things you enjoy doing to make a difference for someone else. When we give or serve or support others, the reward is really the impact that we make on their life. I think it was John Maxwell had said in a message that when he was preaching when I was at Christ Fellowship in West Palm Beach, this idea of people will sum up your life in a paragraph when you die. You can start writing that paragraph now. And I think we all want it to be something of how we made an impact in other people's lives. And it wasn't just about living for ourselves. So let's stop using this idea of YOLO to continue to build ourselves, building our lives to have all of the experiences, all of the things, but rather let's use our gifts, talents, abilities to reach our community to make a larger impact. I don't know about you, but I'm going to start with the man in the mirror because I know that's where it's going to start. If I want to see a change in this world, I have to start with myself. You can reach out to me everywhere on social media at flores.run. Subscribe, leave a review for the podcast. It's how people know you like this, and people want to check it out. Hangry Gear, we are hangry.com. But thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time. See you next week.